A World Cup final without Brazil is unthinkable. It's never happened in 13 tournaments. Their road to Italy starts here in Venezuela. It's 4 p.m. local time, the first of the qualifying World Cup ties in Group 3. Chile are the third team in this group. The winners automatically qualify. It should be straightforward for Brazil. Their picture much brighter now as South American champions. That's quite a recovery after a disastrous European tour in June, when admittedly under strength they lost to Sweden, Denmark and Switzerland. I hardly need to tell you the colours of Brazil. It's something that every football fan grows up with. Venezuela in the red shirts and white shorts. And they have a corner. Taffarel is the Brazilian goalkeeper, and a fine one too. I'm joined in the commentary box by the much-travelled Sheffield Wednesday manager, Ron Atkinson, who I'm sure is as excited as I am about watching Brazil play here.
Yes, Martin, I think it's one of those things, all that's good in football, Brazil represent, don't they? And they have a way of playing that's exciting, their fans demand it. The fans are probably the most excitable in the world, and I'm sure we're in for a great evening's entertainment, because looking at it, it looks very much as if this ought to be an easy one for them, so we ought to be seeing plenty of goals, plenty of high skill.
It's the 8th time that Brazil have met Venezuela. They've won all the previous meetings. They have a free kick here, and a chance for an early goal for Dunga, who's had such a good season in Italy with Fiorentina. Cavallo, the number 6. Anor. Stopped by Bebeto. Brazil, the only country in the world to have qualified for all 13 of the previous World Cup finals stages. And really, they must be very, very short-priced indeed to get through again. They got that early goal, as we showed you, when the two countries met at the start of this month. And they're pressing here with Mazinho. Ron, was he shooting?
That's one of their banana curlers, isn't it? You would expect a higher quality of skill from a player of his quality. Having said that, I bet the surface is a bit ugly out there. It looks very, very bubbly, doesn't it?
The goalkeeper for Venezuela is Cesar Baena, who gave away a penalty against Brazil a month ago. Brought down Bebeto when Giovanni scored the second goal. But the interesting thing about this Brazilian lineup tonight is that they have made a change from the team which won the South American Cup. It's an understandable one, really. They brought back Careca from Napoli, who was injured, and he's forming part of a three-pronged attack with Bebeto and Romario. Romario, number 11, lurking in the centre. The defender was Torres, but the ball had already crossed the line. Venezuela, a country with no World Cup tradition at all. The biggest sport out here is baseball, and you can be sure if these two nations met at that sport, there would only be one winner, just as you feel that there will only be one winner here tonight. But Venezuela are improving their football from being really also-rans in the South American competitions. They're certainly capable of making a game of things now. They held Peru in the Copa America to a 1-1 draw. And they scored 4 goals in 4 games, which was quite an achievement. And a great achievement for the number 10 here tonight, Carlos Maldonado. He got all 4. He's a raiding midfield player, and he's one to keep your eye on. Mazinho. This is little Romario, who plays in Holland with PSV Eindhoven. Branco, who plays in Portugal with Porto. Ron, I think we'll see as the match develops if Brazil have to do too much defending. They do play with a sweeper these days. Number 4, Mauro Galvão. I can't remember that happening in the past with all their swaggering style.
No, they played in '74, didn't Pereira? He played something like, he played both the orthodox centre-half and the, well, as they call it, the libero. But it is unusual for them. They usually play a very sort of fluent back four.
Well, Branco will spend a lot of time in midfield, and he can shoot! Well, there we are. In the 6th minute, and the golden touch from Brazil. Branco with that wonderful left foot, and it simply sped into the corner. And if you've switched on tonight expecting that sort of Brazilian excitement, you haven't had too long to wait, Ron.
Well, as we saw in Mexico, he's a very, 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 very good left-sided player, this guy, and gets an awful lot of free kick goals in Portugal, doesn't he? He's got a fierce left foot, and you've just seen a first-class example of it there.
Yes, in Brazil they have to fight for the right to take the free kicks. Everybody fancies their chances at the set plays. They can bend and curl them and power them as well, but that was just free play, and Branco came onto it in a position that he really favours, and Brazil have a splendid start. That will help to quell any early Venezuelan fire. Branco, whose club side have been playing in England in a tournament at Wembley Stadium, didn't get a goal in 2 games there, playing against Arsenal and the Soviet side Dynamo Kiev, and had Branco been on parade, maybe they might have broken their duck. That was a great strike. Romario losing his way there. Careca be very pleased to be in amongst the glory again in the national team. Had a fine season in Italy, playing alongside Maradona, of course, and also one of the Brazilian substitutes tonight, Alemão. Mauro Galvão stepping in. Mazinho switching the play, and what will Branco do this time? Well, he varies for a clever little pass in. The goalkeeper was deceived too and came rather impulsively. Careca went round him but ran the ball behind. So that was the bluff, Ron, that time.
That's right. I've just got the funny old feeling at the moment that this could be 10. I really have. I mean, you've got to feel sorry for Venezuela. Best they've ever done is score a goal against Brazil, and here they are, 6 minutes, they're a goal down, really on the rack, and well, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we went into double figures tonight.
Well, looking down the past results, a 5-0 with Tostão 3, Pelé 2, a 6-0, Tostão 3, Pelé 2 and Jairzinho. They've come up against some pretty good Brazilians in the past, Venezuela, and they've got as opposition tonight a much more buoyant squad under Sebastião Lazzaroni, whose very job was under threat after a 4-0 thrashing in Denmark in June. But he's got his resources together now, and that Copa America triumph, a terrific boost for Brazil. haven't always taken that tournament particularly seriously. But as the host nation, they were under a lot of pressure to deliver, and deliver they did. Betancourt almost turning back into trouble.
It's also worth noting as well, Martin, it's been it'll be close on 20 years since Brazil last won the World Cup, you know, and we tend to associate them with automatic success in World Cup competitions, but they haven't really. I thought in Spain they were possibly the best side and were a bit unfortunate against Italy, but apart from that they haven't really made that much of an impact, have they, over the tournaments since 1970.
Betancourt with a cross. They do have lapses of concentration, Ron, don't they? And I just wonder here whether Venezuela might catch them still glorying in Branco's strike. If they get half a chance, they'll have to take it, because that might be all they'll get. But really, they have been fallen favourites in the past, and it does rankle with the Brazilian public that it has been, as you say, 20 years it will be when the finals are staged in 1990. Since that wonderful triumph in Mexico in 1970. Played back in by Rivas, overhit and beyond the despairing Fernandez. Venezuela are coached by Carlos Morena, who was actually born in Argentina, although he played his football in Venezuela. So 1-0 to Brazil already, if you've just joined us. A rasper of a left foot shot from Branco. And of course, playing with the sweeper, Ron, the fullbacks, Branco on paper is the left back, do have that opportunity to come forward.
That's right, although in Mexico he did spend most of his time pushing on, didn't he? Was it Elso? Elso was the captain, wasn't it, in Mexico, who gave him a lot of insurance.
Edinho.
Edinho, yeah. And he's very, very comfortable at that. In fact, he's probably better doing that than having to being forced to defend as a natural defender.
And they'll be pleased, really, Brazil, to get a goal from a different quarter. It was really down to Bebeto and Romario as they made their progress towards the end of the Copa America. Ricardo, who plays for Benfica. Rather over-hitting the long pass. This is Maldonado. Little buzz of excitement around the stadium when he's in possession. By some South American standards, the pitch is reasonably flat, but the usual bad hop of a ball in a way contributes to the exceptional skills that Brazilian players seem to develop. They're used to starting their careers on rutted surfaces, often in the hinterlands of the country, and it develops a touch on the ball that's the envy of many. Now didn't take the goal kicks in the Copa America either. He still has that problem. Played across by Torres. But Venezuela really here for the taking. Bebeto. Romario laying it off. This is Dunga. And now the right back, Mazinho, joining in. Well, you're disappointed when it doesn't go on target. Dunga, quite capable of beating a goalkeeper from that range, but he just got underneath it and didn't control the volley.
I think you've just seen there again, Martin, as well. Critics of the sweeper system being negative and defensive. We've seen Branco get forward and score in the first few minutes. We've seen Marzinho right up on the dead ball line a couple of times, producing situations that possibly they should have scored from. I think that's the big advantage of the sweeper system, being able to release and spring your fullbacks very early.
Fernandez for Venezuela. Well, there'll be some reaction in this ground if they got a goal, especially at this stage. Marzinho. Romario, who at times looks very lazy in the physical tests that Brazil were doing before the Copa America. He was timed the slowest over the Cooper's test, around 3,200 metres. But he started all the matches. He's quick enough around the box. That was Careca coming in that time.
He's got a big responsibility, hasn't he, Careca? Wearing the number 10, when you think of Pelé, when you think of Zico. Having said that, if there is anybody likely to follow the act, it's him. He's one of the great centre-forwards in the world today.
And at 28, Ron, really at his prime now, one would think.
That's right. I mean, he should be one of the big players in Italy next year.
Betancourt got the tackle in. Fernandez. And that was a shame for Venezuela. They had plenty of players forward, and they still have. Valdo, who really motors in midfield, and on paper, he and Dunga are really the two regular midfield men in this lineup. Of course, they'll be supported there by the fullbacks. Bebeto linking up with Marzinho. It was a cross to test Venezuela's concentration at the far post. Pacheco able to divert it behind for the corner. Goalkeeper had really committed himself.
We talk about Brazil as well, you know, all skill. That's the thing we always associate with them. I think they're one of the greatest nations in the world with their head, you know. They're great headers of the ball, the Brazilians.
Well, they're regrouping in the centre now to try and prove that point if a cross comes in. Dunga. Branco on something of a wander. And we shouldn't neglect to mention their mean streak.
Oh, they can be a bit spiteful if it's necessary, can't they?
It's quite an experience watching them pre-game. They'll argue about anything, whether they should have this dressing room or that, which bench they should be on, what time the team should come out. They want it their way. I saw an amazing scene in Australia a year ago where they played Argentina, great rivals of course, and the match looks as though it would never start because of those sorts of arguments, even down to how many substitutes should be named, and they were never going to agree. So great competitors, but wonderful colour to their football. That's really what's captured the world's imagination. Trying to force away down the outside, Rivas. Careca. No route through the centre this time, not for the moment at least.
Well, the Venezuelans are working very hard, aren't they? They're up and down the field together. They certainly get bodies behind the ball when they're being attacked. And once or twice they've suggested when they do come forward that they've got a fair bit of skill level.
Yes, they've showed good character since losing that early goal. I think previous Venezuelan teams might have almost thrown in the towel, but they have worked very hard at their game, and that showed in the Copa America, and they're on the charge again with Fernandez, and Maldonado had a sight of goal then. He stayed down injured. The only player, remember, ever to score a goal in a full international for Venezuela against Brazil. Countries have been meeting each other on and off for 20 years. And that was a moment where, as the ball rolled towards him, he had to strike at it quickly, but he couldn't connect. Trying to do the striking at the other end now is Romario. Is it off the line? It is. Romario, who has this capacity for almost smuggling the ball past defenders. The pressure is still on Venezuela. Buying some time now, Fernandez. One back by Ricardo. It's a good open game. Dunga gets a foot in. So a goal to Brazil. One cleared off the line. 21 minutes gone. And Venezuela trying to play their part. They've never qualified for the World Cup finals. The odds are stacked high against them here. Mazinho stopped in his tracks. I saw quite a lot of Taffarel, the goalkeeper. Let's look again at Pacheco's clearance right on the very line from Romario. But Brazil have struggled with goalkeepers over perhaps the last 20 years or so, Ron, and Taffarel really does look the part. Very good on crosses, the bread and butter stuff.
That's right. I mean, even in their greatest of sides, you were never totally sure about Gilmar, were you? I mean, he got the big... Perhaps it's because, by and large, they've never really needed goalkeepers.
That may well be so.
But I tell you what, they've never struggled in this situation, have they? Free kicks, anything up to 35 yards from goal.
Well, Venezuela setting a wall here, and you would think they might be short of volunteers. That was the infringement.
I think we'll see if there's any would-be Rivalinos here.
Well, there's Branco, his appetite already whetted. Is it going to be another special effort? 5 in the wall to bypass, the goalkeeper on his toes, rather in the centre of the goal. Here goes Branco. Oh, it was close enough to bring an ooh from the crowd. Well, that was pure Rivellino, wasn't it, with the left foot and all, and almost number 2 for Branco. And worth another look, just skimming the bar. Fernandez. Maldonado with a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. He's a national hero now. Betancourt. Plenty of fluid movement by the front three for Brazil. It's not really any great shape, is it? They seem to have license to go where the mood takes them.
Well, that's it. They're 3 natural football players that can all play, have all got skill, have all got pace. And basically it's just a question of just stick the 3 out there and give them plenty of the ball. Can't help thinking there, Martin, about a comment I've heard recently from someone who should be nameless, but is in a relatively high position with the Football Association, that has made the comment: if ever Brazil learn the secret of the long ball percentage game, then we all better look out.
Name names, Ron. No, it's a natural, intuitive fear when they've got their best players out, like every country. They need to have the production line going well. But Bebeto, Romario and Careca, the three forwards here, really working it out off the cuff. But Venezuela playing their part, starting to get one or two crosses in. Well, Ron, you were talking about their strength in the air. We're seeing it defensively at the moment.
Oh, they're good headers of the ball, and they're also, have you noticed, I mean, when the Venezuelan team have built up attacks, they've also put some very, very resolute tackles in. I mean, for all their skill, for all their fluency and everything, they're not a team of flim-flam players. They never have been, Brazil. Even the great Pelé was well capable of looking after himself.
And it was Febles, I think, the player who's down. Yes, opponents often left in a heap, as Febles was then. Now Dunga. Bebeto won it back. Mazinho. The flag is up, and Romario, who's adjusted very well to life in Holland. It's not a natural move, really, from Brazil to the Northern European climate. He played a lot of his games in gloves, but the goals didn't dry up. And the money, knowing how rich PSV Eindhoven are, must have rolled in, which would be the attraction in the first place. Which is why Brazil continue to lose their players to Europe in terms of the domestic game, and that is a problem for their own league, and indeed at times for getting the right squad together for internationals. The World Cup brings them all out, though, and brings the best out of their football. Surely no. Oh, the goalkeeper just cut it out. One pass too many, Ron?
Well, not really, no. I mean, he just hasn't produced a perfect ball here. He's played an early ball here, but marks again, the keeper's read the situation well. As I say, in actual fact, they've surprised me, Venezuela. I mean, I thought they'd have just capitulated after Branco's early strike, but no, they've stuck at it, and they're playing with a little bit of purpose. Acosta.
Cavallo. Brazil pretty well equipped to defend through the centre with the insurance of the sweeper.
There's just a suggestion to me, Martin, that
just break off as Romario tries to cut one back.
Just a suggestion that Branco and Mazinho are so obsessed with getting forward. I'm not too sure about the covering defender in the space behind. You know, once or twice when Venezuela have threatened, it's been in wide positions.
I suppose that's the theory. You can get behind the fullbacks and pull them apart a bit, pull the markers into wider positions than they would care for. But that's for Venezuela to work out in practice.
I mean, I don't think it'll seriously hurt them in a game like this, but one wonders if they bring it over to the World Cup next year, whether some of the better European sides, the Germans, the Italians, will give them problems.
Well, they only conceded one goal in the Copa America. Oddly enough, that was scored by Venezuela. Romario, one number 11, dispossessed by the other. Rivas, who's sturdy of frame. Come back by Galvao, who stayed forward. Mazinho with the throw, who's keeping Josimar out of the starting lineup. He's one of the substitutes. Bebeto trying to keep it in. And a goal kick is the decision. Bebeto might just have had a case then. He's been quite a controversial character. He's been linked with moves to Germany, to France, to Italy. But it looks as though he'll be playing in Brazil for one more season, but not with Flamengo, his club, all his short career, but with their arch rivals Vasco da Gama, a major talking point in Brazil at the moment. Aldair treading on the ball. Valdo was covering. And here goes Ricardo. Well, everybody wanting to join in further forward, and Venezuela got one ball forward quickly. They might expose Brazil at the back. This is Febles. Offside again. So confirmation of the Brazilian lead given to them by Branco in the 6th minute. With a superb shot. Certainly not disheartened the Venezuelan fans here in Caracas. The team keeping their heads up. Fernandez has worked hard down the right-hand side. Supported by Pacheco this time. Cavallo's little clip ball forward. And I think one important facet, Ron, when you do play Brazil is to play them fair and square on the day and not play their reputation.
I think that's right. I mean, as I said, it's been 20 years since they've been the actual champions, and whilst they've always been the side everybody wants to watch in tournaments, they have had the frailties. They haven't been like the all-conquering side as they were in Mexico in 1970.
Cavallo. Pressed by Bebeto, but Venezuela came out of that okay.
The one thing I hope they don't do when they come over next year is, remember when they came over to Germany for the '74 World Cup, they tried to adopt a more European style, and in fact got very, very physical.
This is Betancourt, doing well for Venezuela. Oh, this is brilliant stuff. Just once or twice lacking a little bit of know-how when they get to the edge of the area. But the crowd rising to Venezuela. Taffarel hasn't been too busy, but the men immediately in front of him have started to have to work very hard. And that didn't look on when Brazil scored so early in the game. Dunga came through the Brazilian Olympic setup in 1984. And the referee this time, he comes from Bolivia, Juan Ortube, producing a yellow card. He's not had too many problems as far as South American games go. Well, that was a dangerous play by Morovic. And that's why the card was shown. And it's Branco again. The wall got a bit of a battering, but held firm.
It's incredible how they do think they can score from any distance, and doesn't matter how many men are in the wall, they'll go for a big blaster or a bender, try for deflections off the wall, or even a sort of parry off the keeper.
Valdo almost sneaking his shot inside the near post. He's a very unselfish toiler in midfield, Valdo. Doesn't score too often himself, certainly not for Brazil, but he made, by now, the goalkeeper scurry down to his left turn. Not content with the free kicks, Branco supervises the corners as well, and he might well shoot from here. Venezuela pushing out, Valdo almost getting round the back. Dunga trying to steer the pass wide, where Branco had got back into an onside position. Mazinha, and that's twice he's done that. I think he must be trying to emulate Josimar's goals in Mexico from those sort of positions.
I think that was a little bit more awkward. I mean, he just didn't get round Branco's pass there. I mean, the first ball he put out of play, he got good possession. Then I think he was stretching a little bit.
Valdo. Well, he's hit one with his left foot and now one with the right. And he's certainly getting the range. It's interesting to, Ron, just to make a point about Valdo. He pulled out of the Olympics in September. Benfica pulled him out because of their season, and they said Valdo would be banned by Brazil, but the ban is over, and they're glad to have him back.
Yes, I would think so. I would think that it's just about the period of the game now where Brazil seem to have stepped up a little bit, and perhaps looking for a second goal just before the interval. There's certainly been more purpose about the play in the last few minutes.
And I think it's making the match a much better spectacle that they have had to do that Venezuela have withstood the early buffeting and given a bit of their own in reply.
Yeah, there's been quite a decent tempo about the game. Very often we see a type of game like this that lapses into a very, very slow tempo match, but there's plenty of urgency about this game from both sides.
As if Carlos Moreno, the coach, has said, well, if you can get at Brazil a little bit, you might just unsettle them, let them play at their own tempo, and you're dead.
That's right, and in the tournament, it's their big game in the tournament, isn't their home game against the, shall we say, the world favourites. And they've got nothing to lose, so they might as well have a go for it.
Branco. Two defenders going for the same ball then, and that could have been costly. Ricardo. A lot of the play at the moment coming through Dunga. Careca, that was, well, he made it look so easy, but it required great technique to guide the ball on with the outside of the foot. Didn't quite get the support it warranted that time. His club, Napoli, runners-up in the Italian First Division behind Inter, but winners of a major European trophy, the UEFA Cup. Dunga got a foot in. Well done by Febles. And you're looking to help it on for Febles again. push by Aldair. Well, with 5 minutes to go to half-time, it would be very interesting if Venezuela get a goal from this.
I think this is a further example as well, Martin. You know, in world soccer today, there are very, very few soft touches, are there? I mean, even the best teams really have to play at full stretch most times to get results.
Yes, and Venezuela certainly have been bottom of the South American pile since they started to get involved in international football, and they've closed the gap. They're organised, they're competitive. They're hard. Pacheco, who made that clearance off the line from Romario, who takes the throw. Bebeto having to battle to get into the game, unsuccessfully. Betancourt. Here's Valdo, who does sense where space is available. Carreca's flick, and that's surely offside. Romario, whose stock in trade is to push up on the last defender and then use his speed off the mark to devastating effect, was away too quickly that time.
Brilliant little piece of skill there from Carreca, though, wasn't it? Seen the space.
And still some skirmishes around the other penalty area. Branco. He and Valdo, rivals in Portuguese club football with Benfica and Porto. Dunga, who plays in Italy. Zinho, one of the Brazilian base players. Not too many of them about in this squad. And Ron, one player who you know well, Baltazar, was left out, having played in the Copa America against Venezuela and, as we saw earlier, scoring a goal. Perhaps a word on him after this corner. Baltazar was the top scorer in the Spanish First Division last season. Dunga. Oh, good stop by Baina, with Bebeto following in. And I suppose in that sort of situation, that's where Baltazar has got so many of his goals following in around the 6-yard box.
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, he is a very, very average player until he crosses the penalty line, and then he seems to become a little bit of a giant. Very selfish in the penalty area. Likes nothing better than scoring. And I tell you what, if he was playing today, he'd be giving Branco some competition for taking free kicks. But I must say this, a good goal scorer, as good a goal scorer as I've ever worked with, I suppose. But really, they're very, very fortunate. They've got Carreca, who really is a more all-round player. I mean, I think Carreca would play in anybody's national team.
This is the sweeper, Mauro Galvão. Branco. The goalkeeper came a little tentatively, but got the referee's decision. And there are bodies down everywhere you look at the moment. You were saying earlier, Ron, often these games are slow-paced, and we get plenty of stoppages and a bit of play acting, but it's not been like that. The first 45 minutes has really raced by here. It's been most absorbing.
That's right, I've been very, very pleasantly surprised by the quality and the tempo of the game. Looking with interest at the Brazilian sweeper plan. They're not really occupying, they're not really using their sweeper as a very deep man, are they? They're just using him just off the central defence. Which is only really a slight variation on the theme that they've always used. What they are doing, of course, is they're asking their fullbacks to bomb on, but quite honestly, every time I've seen a Brazilian side over the years, starting from the Santos fullbacks, the Santos pairing, they've always had people that would prefer to go forward than defend.
Junior was another one when he played at fullback, wasn't he?
That's right.
Valdo. Well, Venezuela will be happy to get to half-time just one down, but they may not have that luxury. Mazinho, Romario forced back though, and that little spell of danger passes as Aldair blasts into the crowd. We're well into stoppage time now, and the half-time whistle indeed has gone. Well, it was the sort of start we expected. A goal from Branco after just 6 minutes, a rifling low shot, real Brazilian stuff. But Venezuela, to their credit, have come back strongly without making too many real chances, but they've given us plenty to look forward to in the second half. We'll take a short break, but don't go away. Welcome back to Caracas. The second half literally started as you rejoined us. Venezuela 0, Brazil 1. And this the opening game of all the World Cup qualifiers in South America. It's a programme that's pretty condensed compared to the European programme, which is strung out over the best part of 2 years. All this will be sorted out in all three groups by the 1st of October. Romario drawing Pacheco across with him. Mazinho with Betancourt in the way. And he's really epitomised the Venezuelan determination, the number 5. And 1 or 2 swashbuckling runs down their left-hand side, but he's slipped rather easily here by Valdo. Careca pulling away.
Just before half-time, Martin, Valdo started to take a strong grip on the game, and it looks as if he's signalled his intent again.
Well, as we've stressed earlier, the good thing here, and perhaps even from Lazzaroni, the coach's point of view, Brazil are being stretched and pushed and having to perform. It's been a stroll when they played Venezuela in the past, but it's not that in this match.
I think it would also be a lot of encouragement to other teams that will fancy the chances next year. That at the moment, Brazil, a lot of skill, but they're going through a transitional period. I wouldn't think at the moment they're quite sure what their best side is.
And of course, relatively recently, it's been hard for any South Americans to come to Europe and go away with the World Cup itself. You have to go back to Brazil's triumph in '58 in Sweden.
Yep.
17-year-old Pelé and all. And here is 27-year-old Mauro Galvão sliding in. Carvalho interrupted his progress that time. Bebeto on to the ever-willing Mazinho, and the power of Careca in a surge through the centre, and it looked a foul.
It looked more like a mugging, I thought.
Well, the referee was a long way away from the incident and rather dismissed it. Well, The Venezuelan optimism is still running high. Knocked down by Febles then, causing some consternation in the Brazilian ranks. Leading to a corner to Venezuela. 3 minutes gone in the second half. Taffarel didn't quite get there. Hit back by Rivas. Here he is again. Taffarel, one of the fair-haired Brazilians of German extraction from the south of the country. Bebeto. Venezuela trying to scurry back as Valdo plays it in too close to the goalkeeper. In the Copa America, they drove in a lot of lower balls to suit the speed off the mark of Romario and Bebeto, although Bebeto is no slouch in the air. Here's Maldonado, a real hope for Venezuela, certainly in terms of what the supporters think.
Thinking of that, Martin, how do you think their performance today compares with that previous game, Venezuelans?
Well, they obviously got some belief from it, Ron, because, and they do have home advantage this time, of course. They did finish the game in Brazil strongly, scoring the last of the 4 goals in the game, having conceded the first 3. And there was talk from Maldonado, who was much interviewed at the time, that they didn't expect to beat Brazil in this game, but they did think they might draw. They came away with a newfound optimism, which I think we're seeing translated in their football, which is to their credit, particularly as we've stressed that they went a goal behind so early.
It would be an interesting old situation if they could grab an equaliser.
Dunga. Romario. Mazinho. I love those little 1-2s on the edge of the area, but they haven't really been coming off for Brazil as the game has developed. Dunga. Quereca. That's beautifully delivered, the pass by Dunga. To Valdo. Still Valdo. Still Valdo. Beaten away by Baena. Brazil keep the pressure on, and that was Branco's cross deflected, but the work for the goalkeeper came from Valdo's incisive run, and Venezuela seemed to melt away in front of him that time.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing in the game that we've seen so far is that virtually all Brazil's strikes have actually come from midfield players, and I would include Branco in that, because basically he is a midfield player.
Valdo with a full start at the corner. Here's Febles, but Dunga got back. That was a throat-high piece of contact on Quereca.
I think by virtue of the fact, Martin, they're playing with the three central strikers all in a very tight knot. It does make the Venezuelan defence's job that much easier in closing people out. You've seen once or twice where Quereca's threaded great pieces of skill through their defence.
Mazinho with the free kick, and it's Aldair, one of the centre-backs, who's offside. So Venezuela still very much in it, just 1 goal adrift. Fernandez. And that's a tackle born really of enthusiasm by Añor. Here's a chance now. That Mazinho might be able to create. And Baina did very well to stop that rolling more than half a yard away from him. It was Dunga who had an awkward ball to hit first time, and it was a high-class shot after the ball was half cleared. Concern for the local television director here that Venezuela might grab a goal while we were looking at the replay, and he'd never be forgiven if it wasn't shown. So we didn't actually see the full extent of Dunga's shot, Ron, but it was a useful one.
Well, that's right, another first-class example of midfield players supporting and looking to get shots in from distances.
Just got a glimpse there of the number 7, Ariaza. On as a substitute. And that will run away from Maldonado, who's still a student at university. Was actually born in Uruguay, but came to Venezuela when he was only 2. Hopes to be playing his club football in Argentina shortly. Here's Branco, well forward again. Well, they just are not quite getting it right. A couple of offside decisions, shots well stopped, and this time Romario with an awkward ball to hit first time as it came across his body, rather came off the shin.
I think he'd be disappointed he didn't get closer there, though. It was a great situation set up from Branco, and looking at that there, their best chances have actually come from the left-hand side when Branco's got forward. He's delivered with some quality. I'm afraid at the moment, poor old Marzino on the right-hand side has hardly produced a ball worth talking about. I just wonder how our old mate Josimo would get on if they slung him on for half an hour or so.
He'd probably get a hat-trick run. There's another right-back who's actually not considered in the final 16 here, Jorginho, who was really the man in possession. He's lost ground through a recent injury. Fernandez, seeing whether Branco can defend, and he just got a foot to it. Well, the more that Venezuela carry the fight to Brazil, I think the more it might open up on the break. One or two of the more recent chances, or half chances, have come to Brazil with a surprising amount of space compared to the earlier moments of this half and the way the first half finished. Valdo, Bebeto. Now what can Mazinho do with his delivery this time?
Jorge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, micrófono de la cámara, Jorge.
It was a bit too high for little Romario. His stock in trade, Ron, is just getting in front of the marker. I've seen him get plenty of goals around the world like that. He is one of the prolific scorers.
Well, he's not short of confidence.
No, he's not short of confidence off the field either. He's a very bubbly character, very bouncy young man indeed, and he's got plenty to be perky about the way his football career is going. Well held by Baina. Well, most of those watching, although you'll get Brazilian fans everywhere their teams play in the world, most of the supporters will be praying for a Venezuelan goal as we look at Silas. Whether Brazil want to just strengthen their hand a little bit in midfield and possibly take one of the front players off. Whether they're concerned about the knock that Branco got, we shall have to see. But Silas is getting ready for action.
Yes, I think playing with the 3 strikers presents a little bit of a problem for Careca. Basically, all his best work in this particular game has been done as a setting-up player. He's set up situations for people. But as we all know, Careca's at his best when he's playing against the last defender and fighting and scrapping for little things in the penalty box. in many ways, although he's got great skill, he's what you could possibly term almost an old-fashioned British central striker.
Fernandez forcing a corner. Well, it's still on for Venezuela to cause something of an upset, and a draw would be that. Rivas from not too far away from the position where Branco struck in the first half, but nothing like the accuracy. Just to go back to that, or we just look at the incident again, there's Brazil really clear with any overall authority, and Rivas reacted well. But I remember, Ron, when you were manager of Manchester United once or twice, you were tempted to play with 3 forwards instead of the usual 2, and if memory serves me, it didn't work out too often for you when you did that.
No, very often it is difficult because you tend to find each player occupies the other player's space, so there is a shortage of space. I mean, I have worked it and seen it work fairly successful at certain times, and I've no doubt it can be successful for Brazil, but I think in this particular game,
Mazinho. Well, Careca trying to make a last contribution because it looks as though he's going to be the player substituted. And remember, he hasn't been fully fit, so that's not really a condemnation of him.
No, as I was saying there, Martin, when a team plays a packed defence, as Venezuela have done, then sometimes you need your third man in a wider position to try and stretch them. Now, it has been a big problem for Brazil in this particular game.
Bebeto. Silas. Romario will retrieve it. Dunga. Silas goes on the outside himself, and a corner conceded by Cavallo. Well, Silas is no stranger to us, of course, a World Cup squad member in '86. He has a twin brother who plays for Porto. And is a teammate at club level of the man going across to take the corner, Branco. A lot of movement towards the near post, and it hits the other post. With Ricardo making his run into that area, and Venezuela were lacking a little bit in the air.
Well, he's a bit unlucky there. He's got the ball's taking the deflection off a defender as well, isn't he, after Ricardo's headed it. Beautiful ball in from Branco, beautiful timed run from the big defender.
But it's still 1-0. 1-0 to Brazil. Venezuela play Chile here in a week's time. Brazil's next match away to Chile on the 13th of August. Romario rather scuffed it. Bebeto and Romario, remember, operating without Careca alongside them, were really operating with a terrific understanding in the Copa America. always a difficult team for Lazzaroni to pick, this one, involving the return to fitness of Careca. Romario. Still Romario. They're always looking to bend it.
I was going to say they've certainly had the quota of shots.
Silas this time.
He would probably have fancied himself to have got a lot closer with that one. But it's amazing. They only need a half sight of goal from anywhere in the penalty area D, and they'll buy a ticket. They'll have a go at the thing.
As you said earlier, Ron, about Branco and his shooting, that there's always the percentage of a rebound off the goalkeeper if he does get in the way. Taffarel has had a lot of activity at reasonably close quarters, but not too much that's difficult for the Brazilian goalkeeper to deal with. Maybe now's the time for Brazil to reimpose their quality. And Romario's having one of those nights where nothing will go in, at least go in and count. He's still in there. Can it come down for him this time? It does! Well, a bit of persistence paying off.
You can't help but feel sorry for the keeper there, though. Who incidentally has had a great game, hasn't he? He makes a great save off the first effort,
which was here,
and almost gets back and does something about this one.
This is another look at the header.
Yeah, it's a good ball in.
But you have to hand it to Romario. His goal-scoring record, wherever he plays, is exceptional. And he wasn't downhearted by the save. He was ready for business again, and it crept under Baena this time. Well, we've had 24 minutes now of the second half, and the atmosphere in the stadium has just got a little bit more subdued. Can you coach that instinct, Ron, that Romario has, the penalty area perception, shall we say?
I think it's something that generally people that are quick-footed and have got bright minds and are, as they call them, natural goal scorers. I think the interesting thing there that both situations that he had were both in actual fact set up by what you call an old-fashioned cross, an old-fashioned centre.
That's offside against Maldonado.
I mean, he'll be disappointed, won't he, with the first opportunity? He'll probably think he should have scored, and yet the second one looked far less of a situation to score from. He's kept his cool and done very well with it.
So the second Venezuelan substitution, Carrero for Añor. Silas. And Baena, who's gone for most things and made some fine saves. And although we've emphasised the pluck of Venezuela over the 10 minutes or so leading up to the second goal, Ron Atkinson was stressing Brazil was certainly beginning to get shot after shot in towards the target. Bebeto.
I think the biggest single factor, Martin, is, and you obviously got to give the coach credit here, by virtue of the fact he's pulled on an extra midfield player and opened the centre of the attack up a little bit. It's meant there's been far more space for Branco and Marzinho to get forward, and which they've done in the last few minutes.
Fernandez. Good run here by Pacheco. There'll still be laps of honour if Venezuela get one goal. The record between these two countries before tonight, Venezuela scored one, conceded 35. Carrica, as you saw, making his way to the dressing room. We might have a look at a Venezuelan goal here. Betancourt couldn't set himself, and there's a break on now for Brazil, led by Mauro Galvão. If they play it right here, number 3 is in the offing. But the man who stood between them and that statistic, the brave goalkeeper, Cesar Baena. And 1 or 2 extra Brazilians committed forward then, and they've got to turn and check back. Ariasa, stopped by Branco. Silas. This is Valdo. Romario for Silas. And Bebeto to the other side, but played the orthodox return pass.
I think that's something we come to expect from the Brazilians, a little bit of a touchback on with the sole of his foot.
Ricardo. Silas has Marzinho yet again on the right-hand side, and he saw even more room to exploit perhaps for Brazil here. But the end product just a little bit short again. Costa, the captain, and it's Aldair who gives the depth to the defending that time. Dunga. Silas, another who's come through the youth system with Brazil. They do very well at world youth level. Fernandez. It's a run that was turning out to be an adventure at the end. I don't think he was quite sure of where he was going to end up. But all credit to him, trying to do the difficult thing at a time when Venezuela just need a bit of inspiration. Pacheco plants it back, hoping perhaps the sun might get into the eyes of 1 or 2 defenders. But all eyes here on the room that Brazil have to mount another attack. Silas. This is Dunga. Well, the number 18, Morovic, had the chance to clear, and it was all a bit untidy, but it comes Brazil's way. Good header by Acosta. A crucial header, really, to stop a 3rd goal.
I think one thing you've got to say is Brazil look as if they hadn't half prepared for this game. I mean, their physical condition looks phenomenal at the moment. I mean, they've kept the game going at a fairly high tempo.
Branco.
And now they're turning the screw a little bit.
I suppose winning the South American Cup's not a bad warm-up, really, Ron, is it? In that sense. Here's Ariasa, though. for Venezuela. Taffarel, now that is what he is very good at. We haven't had many opportunities to see that in this game, but he's very happy coming off his line. Didn't play in some of the European games in that tour before the Copa America, but I understand that's down to Brazilian politics, which are plentiful in football. Dunga. I think Dunga and Valdo are pleased to have Silas now alongside them in midfield. That was the way they won the Copa America. Ah, Ron, it's our old friend. It's Josimar.
Well, every time I read about this fella, I read where he keeps wanting to come to England and play in England, doesn't he? He's got a sign for Dundee. Was it 2 years ago?
Dundee United, about a year ago.
Oh, yeah. I think he'd have preferred Dundee to Rio.
He'd have needed to play in 3 overcoats. Josimar for Branco is the substitution. Well, that almost came the way of Ariasa. So Callado is going to take the corner. And there's Taffarel again, showing good judgment. That high stepping run of Josimar. I was a bit disappointed in him then, Ron. That was definitely a cross.
Must be something wrong with that side of the pitch, Martin. Everybody that's gone down hasn't produced a good cross yet. Tell you what is brilliant though, the key, obviously the keeper's had very little to do, just handled crosses, but the way he releases it early, as soon as he's caught it, it's on its way, and you've got Brazilians bombing up the field.
He's only 23, and obviously even better things are to come. And as long as the politics stay right for him, I think we might see him in Italy. Doesn't play for one of the most fashionable clubs, Internacional from Porto Alegre. Cavallo. Oh, there was a lovely acceleration from Silas then. Romario. And Bebeto! And the Venezuelan resistance is over. I was going to say the old firm of Romario and Bebeto. It's becoming a regularly successful pairing, but they're very young men, and it's ominous for other international opposition, the understanding that they have. Ron, the time to pass beautifully.
Oh, very much so. I mean, that's a good awareness and a good unselfishness, really. Obviously, he's in a better position, and he's just played him in. Can't help thinking if these two can maintain this form, the guy could be left in a position where he doesn't have to play Caraca. How bad's that?
Valdo. Mazinho switched to left back to accommodate Josimar. Dunga. Well, it's a scoreline, if it finishes this way, that won't surprise too many people, but it hasn't perhaps told the whole story, Ron.
No, there have been times in the game when you think that Venezuela, in fact at one stage you're thinking if only they can just snatch an equaliser now, who knows what might happen. But all credit to Brazil. I mean, they've shown from time to time the little silky skills and the little tricks they've got. They've also got a tremendous resolution about their play. I'm not so sure they've got the great creative midfield players they've had over the years, but they've certainly got a very, very hard-working side there.
Josimar moving into midfield. This is Ricardo. What a run! Bebeto! Ricardo made it possible, and Bebeto rifled in number 4, his second, to inside a couple of minutes for this precocious number 7. And the leggy Ricardo realising now that he had the licence to move forward, and Bebeto with a licence to kill the game off.
I mean, that's another of the great Brazilian strengths. The ball doesn't embarrass anybody. Defenders can come forward, defenders can join in attacks, and look as accomplished as most strike players. Full marks to Bebeto, though. It was a simple chance, really, but he took it well.
I just wonder what Careca's thinking. 3 goals since he departed, and a shape to the play that suggests he might have to compete with Bebeto and Romario for one of those 2 jobs up front. Here's Josimar, though, as Brazil go hunting number 5. And Ron, your early prediction, which was looking a bit hot-headed, may I say, at the start, is looking a bit more realistic now, although double figures is stretching it, but the gap in class is now showing.
That's right, but I think you've got to have a little bit of sympathy for Venezuela, particularly their goalkeeper, who hasn't made a mistake. He's played excellent, and yet looks as if he's going to be on the of a right good hiding now.
Dunga. Bebeto's on a hat-trick. Romario. He's in that smuggling mood again. I think a hand was making contact with the ball as well. He does it all in such a clever way. 6 minutes left on my watch. Venezuela 0, Brazil 4. Branco, Romario, and a double blast by Bebeto. Maybe Brazil's appetite not satisfied yet. They're all playing for regular places. Josimar very keen to keep things moving forward. Valdo taking over now. Josimar again. This is Dunga. Still in quite a hurry to get the ball back in play. Maybe that's a little bit naive at this stage. I should think Venezuela would be very glad to use up the last 4.5 minutes or so to avoid further embarrassment.
Certainly hasn't been the worst game I've ever seen, Martin. In fact, I think it's been a very, very good game, very interesting game, particularly, as we say, with next year coming up. You're having your first look at, or you're having a good look at the Brazilians.
Josimar, effortlessly done.
That was a good ball in. I knew it was possible to cross a ball from the right eventually.
But of course, he's remembered for shooting from that type of position. He got one past Pat Jennings against Northern Ireland. and one from a ridiculous angle against Poland, Ron, I think it was, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. That was a good chance, that, actually. They were disappointed they haven't scored with that, Brazil.
But Brazil still going strong as the time ticks away, and we must pay credit to Venezuela for that, for forcing them to maintain the tempo, and by having to work hard throughout, they've earned their reward, as Venezuela have just started to flag, understandably, in the final chapters of this story. And everyone's trying to get in on the act now. That was Aldair. Carrero. Haven't seen too much of Maldonado this time. It was just a smell of a chance he had in the first half. Stopped by the referee's whistle then, who's given a free kick against him for turning his man unfairly. The crowd were a little annoyed, I think, because they thought it was going to be a free kick to Venezuela and an advantage had been lost. This is Valdo. Bebeto. Bebeto got into the Flamengo side as a 17-year-old and has had to live with all that expectation. He's really starting to flourish now. 2 of those 4 are down to him, and we're a minute and a half away from the end, and Brazil still seeking a 5th. Romario was moving towards the near post. Josimar. Valdo. Dunga. There was a way back, but the substitute Carrero didn't really see it, and Venezuela finally booting their way out of a tight corner. Ron, the final thoughts from you? Anything really that you could take back to your Sheffield Wednesday players as a lesson from what you've seen in this game?
Certainly plenty I'd like to take back. About 7 or 8 of that Brazilian team for a start. They've played very well, and for all their, as I say, all their silky skills, all their little natural things, the thing that's impressed me most has been the resolution. They've worked tremendously hard, particularly in midfield. Dunga particularly, and Valdo, they've deserved something, you know, either of those could have finished on the score sheet. And I would guess that they're going to be quite a formidable force in Italy next year, looking at this, because they have got other good players to come in as well.
Well, I'm sure all the Italian newspapers will be reporting this as the bean feast or the goal feast that Careca missed out on. That's life at the top for you, but he certainly played his part at a difficult stage in the game, played thoughtfully and hasn't been fully fit, as we've stressed. The shot was from Silas. Well, Brazil came here, they came here as champions of South America, but they knew they had to get a result foremost and hopefully put on a show to start their qualifying route in progressive fashion. And they've done that in a most interesting way. They had the perfect boost with a 6-minute goal from Branco, but for around an hour of the game they were put on their mettle, had to play to full capacity before putting an iron grip on the closing stages. This is Maldonado. Fernandez. We're deep into stoppage time now. Arriaza, is there to be any consolation at all for gallant Venezuela? Doesn't look like it. Betancourt. Two substitutes, Silas with Josimar outside him. First real sign of weariness from Valdo. Arriaza. The flag goes up against Fernandez, who's done his absolute utmost to try and force a way through down the Venezuelan right. But there is the final whistle. Venezuela tried hard and gave it really their best shot against opposition that has a history of pulverizing them. The scoreline in some ways flatters Brazil, because for an hour of the game they were pushed to the limit really, although they didn't concede too many chances to Venezuela. But those Brazilian flags are flying proudly again. They finished the game strongly, that 3-goal flourish. Branco with the only goal of the first half, a belter with the left foot. And then the partnership of Romario and Bebeto getting full reward for their penalty area perception. Romario making it 2-0 at a crucial phase of the game. And then it was left for Bebeto really to ice their cake with 2 goals of his own.